What's going on? Boys, today we are talking about your mojo, your energy, your ability to be yourself the way you normally are yourself well. If you've developed yourself into a person you are proud of, you have probably also developed a mode of operation for being that person. And with that mode comes security. You know your strengths and weaknesses. You know what you can and cannot do. Meaning, you know what you should avoid doing because you would make an ass of yourself and that's just not who you are. And when you are doing what you are good at, you can do it well. But what happens when you lose that sense of self, that sense of security? You're off your game. This can happen for any number of reasons, but you'll know it's happening because you become a shambling mess. You're even worse at the things you were worse at before, and you lack the sense not to try them. You know what makes you look like an idiot or feel like an idiot, and you fall into them. Worse, you can't even do the things you're good at well anymore. You have no confidence in your own abilities. Even worse, when you are off your game and you try to pretend you aren't. You can see it in everyone around you. Something is up with you. They can tell something is up with you, and they don't like the phoniness you're presenting, attempting to pretend everything is cool. So how do you fix this? Well, one of my idol's recommendations was to just write it out. Don't force it. Don't pretend to be someone you aren't. Let it ride, and your energy will return to you. And that is a good solution. That works. However, I think there are options for fixing your own game beyond just waiting. Wait if you need to. Never force anything. But there are options, I think. Your first move in this theoretical method of fixing your game, getting yourself back on point, is understanding where your validation comes from. Figure out what makes you feel good about yourself, about life, about everyone, whatever it is. This is an instance MBTI can be useful, pointedly useful. For example, I have an INTJ friend. His inferior function is extroverted sensing. To get himself out of a funk, he needs to dip into a Dionysian lifestyle for a little while and completely cut loose, partying, before he can get himself back in order. ENTJs. I've had a number of ENTJ friends and partners through the years. Every single one of them was able to get themselves acting right through self-exploration, quite often through art. That isn't the only method, but every single ENTJ I've known has used structured poetry in order to search themselves and express what they have trouble expressing. And that seems to work for some of them. But self-exploration for them seems to be the name of the game. Introverted feeling. Feeling like what they just did or what they just spent time thinking about has helped them learn themselves better and love themselves a little bit better. I have quite a few INFP friends in my life right now. Their inferior function is extroverted thinking. They feel most at home with themselves and are able to get themselves back on track when they can get their hands dirty doing something. Whether that be coding, writing, going to church even. I've known INFPs who will go to hardcore Catholic churches just to experience the discipline of it. They aren't religious at all, so they can feel better. and reorient themselves. ENFPs or ENTPs, inferior SI. They will normally be on their ADHD autism shit, going around sticking their noses in everyone's business, getting their hands dirty, or jabbing people to get reads on them, and then they get off their game and don't know what's wrong with them. Then they find themselves or confidence, they get their game back once they realize they know a thing or two and can share it with people. I mean, I like my crackhead energy, but it feels nice to know I know something, to know my way around something so I don't need to worry about it. And finally, for me, my validation comes from others thinking well of me. External validation. That's one of the reasons I do YouTube and adopted the videos need points or videos need value idea. Because if you give someone something valuable, there's a higher chance they will like you. And what I'm looking for is validation. And when you are off your game, these are the things you need to pay attention to. Not necessarily your insecurities or whatever's bothering you, but identifying what makes you feel content with your life, with yourself, with the person you are building yourself into. Knowing what validates you, and not even from an MBTI perspective, but you as an individual, knowing what validates you will make the next step easier. The second step is do what you can in a way you're sure you can. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're off your game, you can't swing at the things you'd normally be swinging at. Higher targets, higher goals. And you know if you forced yourself to try them, your work would be sloppy and you would make an ass of yourself. Your lack of game condition would deteriorate even further. If you need to ride that out and just set everything aside until you're better, that's fine. That's normally what I would recommend. But if you want to take that second step and begin working on yourself proactively, pick smaller goals, surer targets, easier fights. Things in your area of interest you could complete even if you were a drone. Things you don't exactly need a soul or your higher consciousness self to complete. Things not demanding of you as you. And once you get your feet off the ground doing these lower level things, in my experience, yourself starts coming back, especially if you gain validation in your selected I need validation this way area. I'll give you an example of an easier target and a method to complete that easier target to get yourself back on your game. Let's say you are a writer and you want to write a longer story, but you are experiencing writer's block. You sit down, the page is in front of you, you're staring at it, it's staring back at you, you don't even know where to begin. Maybe you've written stuff before, but that skill seems to have left you. What the hell is happening? What can you do about it? My method of beating writer's block I recommend to people is a few-step process. First, you take a small notebook with you everywhere you go. Whenever you have a free moment, just look around, describe the scene in your notebook. Little details, conversations you overhear, interesting looking people, anything. Just the sensation of environments you see or things you overhear. Second, develop a character. And by develop a character, I don't mean give us the most fleshed out character in the world. Start with a simple question. You have a character, What would the character do, or how would they react, if a camel walked into the room? You don't need a long and storied history to write a good character. Most characters are instinctual. They are reactionary. So if you can figure out how this hypothetical character you'd like to write would react to one weird stimulus, and it's a good, genuine reaction, you can use that character anywhere, because once you know how they'll react, you can do anything, and reactions aren't that hard to figure out. Third, come up with a simple task. Think of it like Postal 2 if you need to. Simple stuff. Your character needs to go get milk. Your character needs new clothes. Your character needs to fill up some gas. Then, take those 3 steps, sit down, and combine them. You have your notebook full of scenes. You don't need any soul or self to record scenes. You don't need a high concept to gather details. Set the scene, and if you're having trouble doing it yourself, refer to your notebook. You can do that without any real effort. Then, locate your character in the scene. Again, your character doesn't need to be this perfectly written character. You just need a sense of a gut instinct reaction to something. If you have a gut instinct reaction for your character for one stimulus, you can probably figure out how they would react to other things. When you're writing characters, at first, keep everything instinctual and they will write themselves. Then include your third component, your simple objective. It doesn't need to be going out and saving the world or anything else. Something super simple. The simpler the better even. Then you just write your character completing that objective. Your character moves through scenes and experiences details you've already recorded. You didn't even need to come up with if you couldn't. Your character doesn't need to be someone you've thought through yourself. They just need to be a reaction, which turns into a series of reactions, and you can even record those from other people if you need to. And the goal is so simple, you don't need to get super creative with it. You are just recording the way this super simple thing would go down. When you keep everything simple that way, and even draw in from the external world, you don't need to be a best-selling author to get pages down. You are just filling in the blanks. It's like writing by numbers, but it isn't, right? Because you are doing it. You were involved in every step of the process, and now you're writing. It doesn't feel like you are pulling this grand work out of your head, because it isn't. Most writing isn't. You are piecing everything together with what you already have. And now you've overcome writer's block, because the method you employed is foolproof. You aren't writing, you are recording. But as it turns out, recording is a form of writing. And your recording will turn into writing pretty easily. Now, the reason I give you boys that example is it applies to getting your game back. If you select a goal you could accomplish without needing to think a lot about it, needing to be on your highest game, something almost color by numbers, but still doing what you are good at, your game will come back. And it'll come back, or you, your higher self, will come back because you're doing this thing you like or have confidence in, but you're unstrained. Because it's so simple, it's so color by numbers, you don't need to worry about it. You have room not to stress, not to worry, not to feel like you need to take on the world all at once. And as you progress in this simpler thing, your higher brain will start to come back online and have fun with it. And then you're back on your game. That's what being on your game is. You're doing what you're good at, and you're yourself, and you feel great about it. You're back to having fun without worrying, and when you're having fun without worrying, you're confident, and when you're confident, you're on your game. That's the objective. That's the whole idea. So, to summarize, figure out what gives you validation, what makes you feel good about living. You'll want to stimulate that somehow, if you can. Then, select something you're good at, or in the field you're good at, but that won't require your higher brain to do. Something you can do as a drone, something that you won't need to worry about, something you won't need to think about, something you won't need to work super hard on. Then, while you're doing it, because you're unstrained, start having fun. Or rather, let yourself have fun, because if this thing you're doing, this simpler task you've chosen, is in your area of interest, and you aren't worried, and you really do like it, fun will happen, and then confidence will happen. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. When I'm in a slump for YouTube, all I do is tell you things I know that I don't need to think about. And that makes the video making process easier. And then I get to have fun like I did in this video. This was a fun video to make. I did enjoy making it. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. How are you boys doing? Are you off your game? Are you on your game? How do you pass these off your game moments without falling too deep into a slump? Or any experiences in that slump? I'm curious. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching, everybody, really. We have a lot of fun on this channel, so much fun. In fact, you could stuff a beanbag with it and sit on it and have fun. There's this big beanbag in my apartment now, and nobody touches it. It stinks. But it's fun. Having a big fuck-off beanbag in your living room for absolutely no reason and no one wants to touch it, that's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. But that's how much fun we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.